Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. Thank you for joining us. And this week, we've got my co-host back again. Andre, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We are, Andre put up the topic for today to discuss.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about fires and how they affect the building industry and what happens when a house burns down. You hear me very hesitantly talking about this because it's a topic where if you experience losing your home to a fire,
it's horrible.
It's the worst. You have very little time to get out, so it's very stressful in, choosing what you want to decide to keep.
Yeah. And it's so stressful, like while the evacuations are happening, everybody's on the site. Sometimes the site goes down for evacuations. It's chaos.
I've been through evacuations in the 2003 fires. I've been through evacuations in 2023. You actually rolled into town and right in time to help me.
Yep.
In 2023, where I actually watched the fire come to the doorstep. And
it was
that was crazy, wasn't it?
50 feet away from your house, yeah.
And what I realized in that experience is like everyone's anxiety level is really different. Mm-hmm. And like I was like, we got to put this stuff in the car. We got to do this. We got to move this. And some of the people with me are like, whoa, no, it's okay. We got lots of time. The water bombers are on there. I'm like, that thing just moved. Like, everyone has their own like when they're gonna go and when they're gonna start moving. So anyway, it's just a crazy time to decide what you want to keep.
Yeah.
And then if the fire does get to the home, there's nothing left.
Yeah. Usually it's pretty devastating. I mean, even the smoke, if it gets close and the smoke damage is there, it's usually there's so much work involved to get it back up.
Yeah. And we live in an area where forest fires happen.
Yep.
All down the west coast of Canada and the United States.
I mean, we can see that now with the LA fires that are happened.
Which is not uncommon in LA to see forest fires as well. It's very dry climate. Mm-hmm. We're getting hotter, we're getting drier. So now, with building code, it has improved its standards when it comes to how they build and materials you use for fire protection. We'll talk more about that later in the show. Yeah. We'll dive into that. But we want to talk about the economic impact.
Yeah, kind of what happens when a fire rips through a community.
And takes down structures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Back in 2003, I'm sure a lot of you were here for this. You moved here that year or the year after?
Just after. Just after the fires is when we were scheduled to move here. So we did anyways, regardless of the fire. I mean, they were under control by the time we got here, but it was that summer, yeah.
Yeah. That was way back in my glorious 20s, just out of high school. Actually worked for this radio station and sat in that control booth, Gurinder, and ran that board for Phil and all the other announcers because we were 24/7 fire watch updating.
I bet.
And there was, and I'm going by memory, I didn't Google this before, but I think there was just over 250 structures that were lost, homes that were lost in that fire. Mm-hmm. And here we are 20 years later, and Upper Mission is completely reinvented.
Oh, yeah.
Itself out of that fire.
Yeah, there's a lot of change that happened. They got a fresh slate to start anew.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people that had insurance money that was going back and rebuilding their homes. We're going to talk more about that process later, too. So you've got all these people coming up and you've got people going to work and building houses. And then there's this new construction going on, so it attracts developers to come in, and you've got land that's cleared because it is expensive to clear land as a developer. So you've got land that's cleared, and new communities being built. So, all these different communities in the Upper Mission started popping up. And now, I mean, they just put in a whole grocery store.
Yep.
It's like a complete shopping market. The shoppers over Wadey. It's really cool
it's like
up there.
A whole city up there now.
Yeah. 20 years later. Mm-hmm. So it does spark economic development. Spark was probably not the best choice of words, but there is some economic prospering after fires.
And there's things that change too. Like, the big headlines that we're seeing now from LA was you've got people that are affected by fires, large amounts of people that still want to live in the city, still have jobs here, still have lives here. And so where do they go? Mm-hmm. A lot of people seem to, flood to the rental market for a couple of years.
They need to rent something.
Yeah, they have housing.
And it's being covered by their insurance.
So usually what you see rental inventory decrease.
Yeah.
And your rental rates start to increase. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of the first economic impact that I see when a fire does happen. We saw it with the fires up by Kamloops when that happened. A lot of people actually ended up moving to Kelowna, and that created increased rental rates in Kelowna, increased housing prices in Kelowna because people were relocating.
Well, and that's another thing that happens when fires go to remote communities. You've got people that may have been wanting to sell their house but can't because there's no sales market in these remote communities. And then the fire all of a sudden becomes an opportunity to not rebuild but to take a buyout from the insurance company and move where they want to go. And I mean, that's an important piece because fires really hit our area in BC quite hard. 2021, 2022, 2023.
Yep.
Merritt.
Yep.
Massive fires there.
Merritt, yeah.
There was multiple communities that lost their structures. And so we're not that far out of these communities, settling insurance claims and now deciding to either rebuild or move. And if you're rebuilding, you're drawing people out of towns like Kelowna to go and work there and build there. So it's going to start creating this pull on our trades market.
I think so.
Pull on materials. As these surrounding towns around us and our local people start rebuilding their homes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we saw that in 2003 when they started rebuilding all of Lakeshore and Upper Mission. Every contractor was working out there, basically, and rebuilding homes.
It was like, I mean, I graduated in 2000 here in Kelowna, and this was a sleepy town. There wasn't a lot of work. There wasn't a lot of construction going on at that time. Most of my grad class went off to work on the rigs or moved out of small town Kelowna. Not a lot of careers here for people. I was super fortunate to stay here in this community and build a business here. But it's a totally different economic market here than it was 20 years ago. Yeah. And those 2003 fires has a lot to do with the beginning of that money circulation back into the city. I mean, at the time, rebuilding one home was probably $250,000 to $300,000.
Yeah.
However, 250 of them plus, all the new development that came on the backside of that. And when you build a house, there's nothing more local than like fueling the local economy.
Yeah, that's true.
Than spending money on building a home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're bringing in a bunch of trades that are from the area. They're not coming from Vancouver or Calgary. They're all here. And
the last show we did, we were talking about budgets and it was over 60 different businesses you engaged along the way in the process of building a house. So the money that's fueled back into local economy is significant. So we got to take a quick break here, but we're going to come back. We're going to keep talking about the economic impacts of what happens when fires. And we're also going to go into what changes and new developments now in the way they build them to prevent fires. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I got my co-host, Andre, here with me today. Say hello to the people.
Hello.
Today, we are talking about what happens with forest fires. And I say this with, I'm sure lots of us know people that have been impacted by forest fires here in the Okanagan. It's something that happens here too often. Most of the time we just are hoping the smoke doesn't sock us in and we get a nice clear Okanagan summer, and a lot of that smoke does come from down south as well, but the west coast of Canada, the United States, is a dry, hot, wonderful climate that people want to be in, and some of the side effects of that is fires. Our hearts go out to anyone who has gone through the process of losing a home. Obviously, that is an extremely stressful and traumatic process that stays in your memory forever. But today we're talking about kind of the economic impacts of those fires and structures coming down, because we did recently have 303 structures lost in our local market, and that was in 2023, which means the starting of construction of those homes probably just got started or starting to get started. Takes a really long time.
Insurance, dealing with insurance adjusters and probate and everything like that. So probably this year we'll see some reconstruction happening. For those that want to do reconstruction. I know there's a few of the structures that burnt, old buildings, old structures that probably won't get rebuilt.
Sometimes it's a win and they're like, yes, I will take the money. Then we've also had communities around us devastated to fires and floods, actually.
And floods, too.
That's another one.
That's a good point,
I guess we can blanket this more as natural disasters. But then they take the opportunity, if they've been trying to move out of a rural area and unable to sell their home, that they take this opportunity to take a buyout and leave and move. So you have some migration around with people. The other thing is that, and I could say we saw this after the 2003 fires, is that it makes national news. Right?
Definitely.
And so now the entire country is looking at Kelowna, and yes, the shots are of the fire, but it's over the lake and the mountainous, and people go, where is that place?
Definitely.
And maybe they want to come see the aftermath of fires. Maybe they're into that, but maybe they notice the beauty of the town, and you definitely have an increase in tourism, and
it's definitely a two-sided coin. Like, there's definitely the potential of increased tourism, but you also have people, like, for example, in 2003, I knew people that had to cancel their trips or not be able to come to Kelowna because of the fires. And so then, a stigma kind of gets formed around Kelowna in the summertime. It's a bit of a gamble, because what if there's going to be a fire?
Well, so that's the flip coin. I think I saw a lot of that out of the 2023
most prominently, for sure, out of the 2023 fires.
And especially, like, we build stuff down in Penticton. Oh, I love that city. If you haven't been down in the south, like, recently, take a day trip to Penticton. It's lovely down there, but they are like old Kelowna, where they live on tourism and their events, and a year with fires and smoke and the government saying, don't go to BC. We've canceled all your reservations. That
was extreme. That was very extreme.
That hurts. It hurt us here, and we've now have a bit of an economy here. I guess it works both ways there. But then you also, the other factor is government funding. Government spending,
I think the most we saw that too was actually the floods down by Merritt, where, the roads and the bridges got washed out, and
Oh, when the Coquihalla.
Yeah, exactly.
fell
So
apart.
they're rebuilding that piece of the road. Arguably, it's better than it was before.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's taking so long, but you do get a huge influx of government spending that comes in and rejuvenates the area.
How no one lost their life in that
Oh, I agree.
thing. Like, hats off to the emergency response teams and how they handled that after the fact.
Yeah.
And, the province pulled just about every engineer in the province to work on this and get this back together. And it was actually a problem for us in construction here because
That's true.
we couldn't get our plans signed and stamped in a timely order like we used to. The last 4 years, everyone says COVID and supply issues and labor shortages, but we had multiple fires. We had 300 structures. We had 3 towns flood out completely, which all needed restoration. We had the Coquihalla flood out. Again, you probably haven't gone to Penticton lately because that road blew out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That road blew out. And so you had to go through like some sketchy back road, forest road to get to Penticton.
Yeah. So like natural disasters cause challenges.
Yeah.
And however, I mean, Andre and I were great together because I'm always like super positive and he's like, wait a minute, think of this side of it. But, when you do put demand on stuff, then more things start happening.
Yeah, more things do start happening. And I think it's going to be curious to see the rebuilds that we get here in West Kelowna, where the fires were.
Yeah.
Because it was like older structures. And we're going to talk in a later segment about building structures and technologies, but it's improved so much. And you can really see like stark differences between a house that was built a while ago versus a house that was recently built in terms of what's lasting and what's not.
Well,
and being able to go to that new standard now with the houses that do get rebuilt, I think is a push in the right direction where less of these natural disasters that impact, families and people's livelihoods, they'll occur less just because we have better technologies around that.
And if you're wondering, why so many homes burnt in Rose Valley area down West Side Road versus the fire ripped right through McKinley.
Yep.
It ripped right through Lakestone, and not one in the new community, not one of those houses came down. And a lot of that has to do with the standards you need to achieve in developing a community and building a house in the forests of BC for new fire codes.
And it's obviously paying off, which is
100%.
great to see.
100%. Yeah. Insurance is a tough thing to deal with. I think that's like after you go through
it's like adding insult
losing
to
your
injury.
home and then you got to go through insurance. Now, disclaimer, neither of us are insurance brokers.
Correct.
And neither of us have personally gone through an insurance claim on a fire or a flood. Have you? Well, like a hot water tank blowing.
No. For us, it was rain. Like back when we moved, there was the immense like torrential downpours that would happen. We don't get those so much anymore, but
they do in Penticton.
They do in Penticton?
Yeah.
Anyway, we were probably 2 years into our home that we had purchased, and we were at the bottom of a cul-de-sac, and our entire basement floor got flooded because of a flood. Not a fire, not total devastation, but yeah, just natural disasters all the time, and insurance is just painful to deal with.
Yeah, and you know what? There's probably a bunch of insurance brokers listening right now being like, wait a minute, we're really easy. You know what? Come tell me, how do they tell us, Gurvinder?
They just need to get in touch with us at, send us a text, 250-862-2525.
Yeah, and come talk to us about what the insurance world
that would be a great episode.
Really looks like on new home construction and natural disasters, actually. If anyone out there, give us a call. We want to talk to you. It's fires.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about new building practices in development and construction. and dive just a little bit of our knowledge in the insurance process and the length at times, and some more tips and tricks on that. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
And we'll see you soon. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila, with my co-host, Andre, today.
Hello.
We are talking about fires and natural disasters and the effect that has on the real estate industry, from the economics, good or bad, construction, the demand on construction, tourism, government spending, and what we were talking about during the break is the process of insurance.
Yes.
So it's really easy to be like, oh, insurance.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they have policies that they're selling to you and you're purchasing them. And so if you're sitting across the table from your insurance broker and you spent 10 minutes with them and you're like, yeah. Oh, I like that price. And you sign away. Then it is not their fault that you don't understand what your coverage is when a flood or fire happens.
Exactly.
Get to know your insurance broker.
Yeah.
And read the policy.
Yep.
If you don't understand it, ask questions about it.
Absolutely.
That is what the insurance rep is there for.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a good insurance rep that you trust and understands the product that you're trying to insure.
Yeah.
I think it's invaluable. I mean, with the properties that I've had, I've switched brokers numerous amounts of times and landed on one that I really enjoy and understands what I'm trying to do and is willing to go out to the market every single year and get the better deal for the policy that I need and for the coverage that I need. So having a trusted insurance broker is, especially in the Okanagan, I think is invaluable.
Yeah. And when there are fires going on, regardless of where your home is, the summertime can be tough to get insurance in general if there are fires going on. So, take a look now that it's still early in the year, before you run into your hot weather seasons. Maybe take a look at your insurance policy. Maybe sit down with your insurance provider and just get a good understanding of it before any hot weather season starts.
Yep.
And look and see, do I have a renewal coming up?
Yep.
If you have a renewal coming up in a hot season, you might want to renew early, because if there is a fire going on, you may not be able to renew. And if there was a fire recently, you may not be able to get fire insurance but still renew. So maybe just a little pre-planning around your insurance policies.
Yeah. And the insurance companies, from my experience, what they'll do is they'll use like a fire map. I think each company uses a different one, but they have a set distance radius around that fire, and homes within that area are not eligible for insurance at that time while the fire is still active, while it's still burning.
Yeah.
I believe once they get it under control, once it's deemed, not dangerous to surrounding buildings anymore, that changes and you can go ahead with your insurance policy. But there are times, for example, 2023, because it was so close to, Kelowna, West Kelowna, there was some troubles even getting like construction insurance.
Yeah.
When I had to renew for the building we were doing.
Yeah.
And luckily I had a good agent and we were able to find a workaround for that. But fire season is tough on insurance.
Even buying and selling a home.
That's right.
With the new purchase, if you're selling your home, the new purchaser needs to get insurance. They can't close on their mortgage unless it's insured.
Correct.
And so if it's terrible that we say fire season.
Yeah.
But if there is a fire going on, that could delay that sale and that process. But insurance is a business. So where one company is not going to insure, another company may come along and insure at a premium.
What I've found too over the last, kind of right after COVID, we saw huge increases in insurance premiums just because of, everything crazy going on in the world. But I have started to see them trend downwards. So yeah, looking at a renewal now, I think is a good idea, especially because we are seeing that trend downwards, which is usually not the case.
The other thing, this is now, again, disclaimer, we're not insurance brokers. We don't know the details of insurance.
Nope.
We've bought a lot of it in our careers of rental properties and construction, but we are not insurance brokers, and I would love an insurance broker to reach out to us and come. We'll do a whole show on this because there's so much to talk about. So one thing, and this is from talking to other builders that are doing fire rebuilds and working with clients, is a struggle that over the last 4 years, construction costs have increased so much.
Oh, yes.
Labor costs and so on.
Yep.
And so people who had, 5-year policies that were started before these increases.
Or renewals where you don't update the pricing,
they were having problems where the cost of replacing this house was more than what the insurer provider was willing to come to the table with.
That's really tough.
And that is really tough because, insurers create a policy based on a consistent pricing scale of construction. And in that 4 years, it was a complete anomaly. Everything went crazy. So, and I feel for the owners who have this insurance policy thinking it's going to help them out.
Cover their rebuild,
and then they've got to come to the table with more money. So I think a big recommendation I have is if you have an older policy or you've just hit auto renew on it, maybe sit down with your insurance provider and take a look at that and make sure that if something does happen to your home, that you're set up for today's pricing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's a good direction.
So again, we're going to do another show on insurance with an educated insurance provider.
I think that would provide a lot of value and give people some tips and tricks and what to look out for.
Yeah, and if you're listening and you have questions you want us to ask on that show, text those questions in. Gurinder, who are you texting those? What's the number?
You're going to want to text to 250-862-2525.
Beautiful. Text those questions in. We'll write them down for the insurance show. We'll ask the insurance provider those that day. Let's dive into new building practices.
Yes.
Because this is really awesome. And if you're going out to buy a house and fire is a concern of yours, which 100% fires is a concern of people buying homes in the Okanagan.
Yep.
You're going to want to look at new construction development areas.
There's definitely a leg up on the old 70s, 80s builds.
Yeah. And one thing is fire rating, 10-minute fire rating, 20-minute fire rating.
So what is that?
A lot of people have heard those terms. What it means, it's very simple. You'd be surprised. Construction is actually quite simple, all of their terms. It is how long it takes the fire truck to get from the fire hall to your house.
Okay.
So if your fire hall is within 10 minutes from the fire station, you can go on Google Maps and figure that out very easily.
Yep.
Then you build your house with a 10-minute fire rating.
Okay.
Which means the house can withstand 10 minutes of fire. Or if it is on fire, the fire is contained within the house for that period of time to allow the fire department to get there to either save the houses beside you and get that fire out in that home.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so there's distances you build the house from the house beside you.
Okay.
If you can't achieve that distance, there is specific soffit, because our soffit is ventilation from the house, which is literally air fuel for a fire and ways for it to leave. So you would have solid soffits. And also the amount of windows you can put down the side of your house is based on the distance it is
from an adjacent structure.
From the house beside you.
I see.
Yeah. So, and that is so that the fire just doesn't have big gaping holes to jump out and jump onto the house beside you. Other things, when you're developing a new development, which are typically in the mountain, in the forest, you have to create fire buffers. Do you remember the distance? 15 meters?
I want to say it was 15 meters, but I'm not 100%. I feel like it was dependent on the building sizes as well, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, every location can be have its own restrictions and what it's going to do.
And your municipality will guide you through that.
100%. But they will take down and clear all the trees.
Yes.
And not put any structures in that area to give a buffer.
Yeah. There's even certain areas that have like stipulations and covenants on title where you can clear trees around your development site. Mm-hmm. We ran into that on a site that we were looking at. So it actually, even though it's a forest and maybe typically you wouldn't be able to just cut down a forest, it has these provisions that allow you to get rid of trees in order to create that fire separation and that gap.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk more about the stuff you have to do when you're building new construction and why you might want to consider a new construction house if you're worried about forest fires in the Okanagan. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Real Build. I'm your host, Jamila. I am here with my co-host, Andre.
Hello.
And we are talking about natural disasters and fires and how they affect the economy, the aftermath of that, as well as rebuilding. We've touched on insurance, what to look for in your policies. We most recently, in the last segment, just talked about fire code rating, 10-minute rating, 20-minute rating.
Yep.
This is all reliant on the distance you are from your fire department.
Yep.
I didn't mention, though, that does change if it's a volunteer fire department.
Oh.
Because they factor in how long it takes the volunteers to get to the fire department and then get to your house. So it's not just the distance. So like Lake Country, where they have a volunteer fire department, West Kelowna, where you have a volunteer fire department, you have to factor more time for a 10-minute or 20-minute rating and how they figure that out.
Gotcha.
I have been doing new construction for 10 years, so all of my experience, we have fire rated items we're using throughout the entire build, including the exterior, hardy board. I've never done anything with vinyl.
Yeah.
And or a cedar wood plank, right?
Yeah.
It's always been hardy board. Hardy board is a cement composite material that has a fire rating, so it's going to stand up.
Not very flammable.
Yeah. Stucco,
same thing.
Brick, stone.
Yeah.
These are all fire resistant materials that are used in new construction projects. Metal flashing, asphalt shingles. Instead of cedar shakes.
It's crazy how many cedar shakes we still see, though.
Yeah.
I find it wild how many cedar shakes we still see.
Yeah. So, all of these new products that are just used as standards in new construction today are making giving that house a better opportunity to survive through fire conditions.
And there's even further technologies above and beyond if you are a person that wants that and wants, the cutting edge of fire prevention technology. There's tons of other, more sophisticated materials you can use, sprinkler systems that you can use that detect fires within your property and come out and sprinkle the property. Mm-hmm. There's tons and tons of other
things
building practices that you can do to prevent that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a great conversation to have with your builder if you're building a new home, if that's a priority to you.
Yeah.
But like I said, 2023 is a perfect example of what happens when fire goes through an older neighborhood with developed trees versus new development that has these fire code things in place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lakestone, if you ever drive out to Lake Country and take a drive through Lakestone, you can literally see the fire line right up to the edge of the community, right up to their fire block. like working in perfect order, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there was lots of first responders there.
Definitely.
With water, making sure that it didn't cross, but worked like it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So hats off to the planning and the people that get involved to make these bylaws and put these things in motion to make our communities safer, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great to see.
Now, we talked a ton about single-family homes in this, but the building standards in condo buildings and multifamily buildings have also increased, and that is with your wall separation, right?
Yeah, the technologies and the building practices within condo buildings has drastically changed, I'd say, to account for fire.
We just went through the process on the Rydell, the 28-unit condo building, which, by the way, still has a few units for sale, so give us a call. Sorry, little plug there. It's a great building. We built it. But the process, the inspections, the architect's inspections at every step of the way of building out this building, basically you need every unit...
Yes.
In the condo building
is like a self-contained thing
box
by itself. It's not reliant on anything beside it, and it actually tries to avoid having any sort of influence from units beside it.
Yeah, and it's sealed
It's completely sealed, yeah.
Yeah, so fire caulking was like 3 months of our life.
Yes.
Right?
Every little hole, like any hole for a cable or any hole for...
electrical boxes
or plumbing or anything like that has to be completely sealed around it with this red fire caulking material, this red goop.
And filling air gaps in the walls.
Yes.
So yes, we've sealed everything up and all the holes of your box, but air gaps in the walls between hallways and other units just, again, fuel for fire to go up. So those have to be stuffed with insulation, rock wool insulation, and puttied over and sealed up for your safety when you're living in that building to slow that fire down and allow you to get out. And allow the fire teams to get in and get it under control.
I mean, even the doors. So you've got doors that are rated for half an hour, so it keeps the fire behind that door for half an hour or longer. You've got doors that are an hour.
And those doors auto shut.
And the doors auto shut.
If you have a garage door that are annoyed because it hits you in the butt every time you come in with your arms full of groceries and you have changed the hinges to slow that thing down, go back and speed up. The point is that it closes and seals your house and protects you from a fire. So in condo buildings, anytime you move through a hallway to a stairwell, you're going to have these fire protection doors. If you're going from a hallway to a public space.
Oh, definitely.
Like a gym, a storage area, a bike room. You're going to have these steel fire-rated doors that auto close behind you for your protection.
Yeah.
And that's how they should be working.
All those technologies kind of wrap back into the whole insurance conversation we were having, because the more protected your building is intrinsically, like the way you've built it, usually the better deal you can get on insurance. And so all of these kind of factors have a role to play in that. And
your condo building, they have a fire safety plan.
Yes.
Posted.
It's
throughout
right there
the
in the lobby.
entire building, where all the fire extinguishers are. There's maps to show you how to exit, what to do, where your fire extinguishers are located. These are important because one, in a fire, it's panic city. Two, you could have a guest with you who has no idea where to go, or someone could be staying in your place with you not there. So your condos have fire exit safety plans and fire extinguishers strategically placed throughout the building for your safety, along with like a big lockbox at the front for the fire department. So when they do arrive on site, they're the only ones with keys to this thing, and they can gain access.
Come in quickly.
Yeah. So again, it is absolutely a concern out there for buyers of fire safety in the Okanagan. So realtors, if you're listening, we just gave you a ton of really good stuff.
Yeah.
If that is a hurdle to getting people to buy here, you're going to be wanting to look at new construction homes and new construction neighborhoods and let them know about all the stuff that's in place to help protect them.
Exactly.
When that stuff happens.
Hopefully never to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why insurance exists.
It is.
Because stuff happens.
Yeah, it does happen.
So we're definitely going to find an insurance broker to come on and talk more knowledgeably about natural disaster insurance, home insurance, purchasing insurance, mortgage insurance, life insurance, all the insurances.
Yeah.
Because these all directly come back and affect real estate. Even life insurance, because you've spent your whole life paying for this thing. You want it protected to go to the next person, right? So, that'll be a great show. I hope you learned a little something today. If you ever have questions, text them in to Grinder.
Sorry, that is 250-862-2525.
And you can watch our shows on YouTube at The Real Build. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.